Starting. Sorry for being late, everybody. This is, I guess, like the um, the start is always rough for me and maybe for everybody. I don't know. I should make it officially 6:15. I sometimes think like, oh, it's 6:15, and then I I look and then I remember that I said the start time was at 6. So I mean, it was really just getting started at 6 for everybody to have some socializing before. Anyway, we don't really get started until 6:30, 6:45, somewhere in there. But we are officially started. Uh, and so, yeah, I don't know if people will uh, start watching. I guess we've got a few viewers right now, so feel free to chime in and chat, say hello, um, introduce yourselves, talk amongst yourselves. That's what it says right there. 6:15. I don't. This is supposed to be the schedule, but uh, I'm bad about keeping that up. I mean, like making that. I think there's a discrepancy between the template that we use for the Eventbrite and then this, and then like in reality, like when we have real meetings in physical reality, when we get together, there's it's all pretty loosey goosey. It's like a lot of frantic, like, oh, we gotta figure out who's doing what. Um, And I always forget that that happens even on the stream, like in this new time of this. We've according to Twitch, we've lost viewers. Like people are like, "Oh, now we're started. What? I'll leave and come back." Hopefully, hopefully they'll come back. Maybe they'll come back. So yeah, I don't really have anything to say. I should probably play some music or something, but that has worked somewhat in the past. Yeah, I don't know how to do that on Windows. Who knows what's the Windows Media Player? It's probably called Windows Media Player. Let's try it. I'll bet we can find Windows Media Player. I'm gonna do it. Media Player. I'm gonna make that noise. Oh, I do have VLC installed. I could just use that. There is Windows Media Player. That's a thing. I've never used it before. Maybe I shouldn't use that. I mean, I could use VLC. It's a funny thing. I don't know. What should we listen to? So much good game soundtracks. That's not a complete sentence. So much good. Yep. VLC looks totally different on Windows. There's like a there's like a view that has like a queue. I don't see that view in this. Playlist, that's what it's called. There we go. Yeah. I have to like drag files onto there. I'm not a Windows user, really. I play one on TV. This TV, the Twitch TV. Okay, people are chatting. No, I don't usually use Windows. Metroidvania. Oh, I don't. I mean, like which ones? Which Metroidvania games? Yeah, that's a good question. Are people in Discord? I don't know. Say if you are. Shout out if you're in Discord. Um, I'm in Discord because that's how we like connect with our. Uh, how do I listen to music on my Mac? They renamed iTunes. It's now called Music. Um, so I mean, I do actually use the music app on my Mac. Um, but I'm an old school, like I have folders of MP3s. So I have a lot of MP3s and they are actually on my PC, but I never play them from my PC because my PC is kind of a backup machine as well as I just use it for VR. I mean, that was why I bought the PC. I hadn't had a PC in like 10 years, so I bought one for VR. And then um, now I use it for like the odd Unity thing that mostly is just for like that I can't do on my Mac for whatever reason or needs a honkin' video card. It's funny because like Unity is just as good on my 2015 MacBook Pro as it is on this PC with a 980 Ti video card. I mean, that's not like state of the art video card either, but like it's interesting to me that it's pretty much just as good. I mean the new M1 Macs like are kind of exciting. I'm excited to upgrade my 2015 Mac to a new Mac with one of their like, custom processors. Uh, I was searching for game audio stuff. Soundtracks video game. So I have this folder of soundtracks video game. There's a lot of games in here. Ooh, the Polymer soundtrack is so good. I listened to that while working. Katamari Damacy, FTL soundtrack, the Fez soundtrack, the Botanica soundtrack. Oh, here's the. I just remembered that there was like some big thing recently about how like you're not supposed to play copyrighted music on Twitch anymore, right? Like all like a bunch of people's Twitch streams got defunded because they they're taking sending takedowns or whatever it's called. Yeah, so I've heard that like the on the back to the M1 subject, I've heard that the um like the Air, which has an M1, and the Pro, which has an M1, like they're not really that different. And the main difference is like the Pro has like fans, but like no one that I know who has one has ever had them turn on. It's like I don't know what the big differences are, but it seems like performance-wise they're pretty similar. I do know a few people with an M1. Scott, if you want to like message me offline or something, and I could probably hook you up. Okay, I was gonna play some music because like who cares? So what should I play? I have a folder with Tetris covers in it. Ooh, wait, why is this folder empty? It's not even that folder that I was talking about. Whoa, this is not good. All these folders are empty. What? Okay, no, this folder isn't empty. That's something. I don't know why I have empty folders on this. So this is like my backup machine, and like that shouldn't be happening. So am I gonna hear this music is the next question. Looks like the music's playing over the stream. Is that true? Are you hearing stream? Loud. It's too loud. I'm gonna turn it down. Like, what's annoying is that I don't hear it. Why don't I hear it? Much louder than me. Great. Let's turn it way down. I I don't know why I don't hear it. Like, what the heck is going on? I mean, this isn't the VR meetup. J-bomb me guy. Um, there should be a way to like, I think yeah, I can listen to my own stream. So now it says I'm listening. But I'm listening through the default speakers, which are probably not this headphones. Of course not. Why would it be? So dumb. There we go. This is Windows. This is the problem with Windows. No, that just changed. Oh no. Now there's echo? What? Oh, I'm completely messing things up. Sorry about this, guys. Just trying to play music. Um, there's no speakers. There's just my headphones, and like it's looping into Twitch somehow. Why? Why? So the default input probably was like that's what we want. We want that like default speakers situation because that's where the music's coming from. Let's do that in Marty Land. I mean, I think it's pretty real time, or at least it seems like it mostly. I still don't know how to figure out how to listen to my own music. It's ridiculous. I can't see the clock because my webcam is sitting right in front of that corner of my screen. Oh, I do have another machine over here. I could just look over at the clock. 6:25. Ugh. I could listen to the music through this machine. I don't have Twitch up on this machine. I do sometimes load it up just to see like, hey, is this thing working? I mean, it's obviously working. You guys are commenting on stuff here. I just look at my Apple Watch. I do have the Apple Watch on. This is a really pro show, you guys. Pro. Okay, but now it's gonna be weird if I talk. I like how you can all hear my clicks too, like clicking on stuff. Alright, yeah, so this is the Polymer soundtrack. It's one of my like dev crushes in Chicago. Whittier. I'm gonna mispronounce his last name, so I'm not even gonna say it. But Polymer was such a cool game. Has anyone played Polymer? It's on iOS. I don't know if he released it on other things. It's just like weird blobs, and you like have to connect them, and it's kind of Tetris-y. It's like an action puzzle game. It's a super cool game. He made some other stuff that was like more popular than Polymer. Let's see if I can find, what did he make? I'm sure I should remember. Oh wow, it's really hard to search for Polymer game as well. Maybe not the best SEO on that. Where on Discord is he? That's a good question. You know what? I'm not even sure how to find him. Like, I have to like go to Twitter. I think he's in Chicago. Wow, like, I'm sure I follow him, but I'm probably just misspelling Whittier. Okay, Trebella. Oh, and also I'm misremembering his name. Wow, I'm a jerk. His name is Whitaker. Whitaker. He made Pivot. He also made this game called Piloteer, which was, I think that was probably pretty well received. I can't remember what kind of game Pivot was. But he also did the soundtrack for a bunch of video games, like a bunch of probably more successful video games. Yeah. I don't think he's in our Slack. I mean, he's not a local. So, yeah. about. His name is Whitaker Trebella. That's who we're listening to. That's the music that we're listening to. This is his soundtrack to a game called Polymer, which came out on iOS, gosh, quite a while ago. He also did the soundtrack for Super Stick Golf and Cardinal Quest. Oh yeah, and he made a game called Pivot too, which was actually pretty cool. How delayed am I? I mean, how would I know? How delayed am I? I guess I could like see when it comes up on this computer, but I closed that stream. Like it's too weird to watch myself. And plus there's a delay. But yeah, then I guess I might know how long the delay is. There's no artificial delay. Like I didn't put like a... So, okay. I mean, it's 6:30 for me as well. Yeah. So. Okay. I'm gonna paste. Oh. Whitaker's website is not up. Possibly gone. That might have just been a 15-second delay before I saw it. I mean, I don't know. I wonder if Polymer is still in the App Store. So the ironic part is that like I did all that before, that's why I was late onto the stream. What do you mean, what do I need to do? Remind me, what do I need to do again for this? Now I'm just waiting for 6:15, or 6:45. Because that's what the schedule says. So if people went to get dinner, thinking that we weren't really going to get started until 6:45, I still can't hear it. I still can't hear the music in my own headphones. I can tell it's playing because there's a little like thing happening. Yep. Well, he made a new game, I think, called
Spider silk is one of the strongest of the natural polymers.
The new game is called...
Take these paper clips.
Orb?
We can then remove the polymer.
What's interesting is that the music says that it's at 37%. I'm going to turn it down a little bit more even. Huh. I'm not loud enough. I don't know how to control that actually. Oh, I do have control of that. I'm going to bump myself a little bit. I could just scream. That would... I don't know if that would help. Might help some things.
We reach in to the interface. Those 2 layers.
That was a silent scream.
Application of polymerization can even be found in the
So yeah, I mean, if you are not in the Discord, you can join the Discord. Join us in the Twin Cities Game Dev Discord. I will figure out how to invite you in but a moment. This link will expire in 1 day. But you can click it. Oh, which room? That's a good question. I mean, there's a general... I think there's an IGDATC events chat. That's probably the best one. Shane is our first presenter, and he said boop in there. That's the only thing that's happened today. I will say bop. So yeah, the events chat channel, that's probably the best. I think I can like link directly there, is that true? Or I can invite people directly there. Let's paste another one. Oh. There are lots of rooms. Beep. Beep, beep, boom. We're making music now. In there. There's music happening in Discord. Also, Discord is telling me that streaming mode is enabled, and I don't know what that does. Yes, there is also voice chat in there. Although I don't know how you would chat, like voice chat, but then also listen to me. I mean, maybe you can. Well, yeah, probably like your computer's gonna like do the audio mixing for you then. Yeah, so you can do that. Psh, why not? There could be like a whole, that's called a back channel. When you're chatting about the thing that you're all watching together. You can, that'd be cool. If there's a back channel and people are talking about me, somebody better DM me about that, because I won't hear it. Yeah, it's so good. I mean, I love the soundtrack. I wish I could hear it right now. There are a bunch of global game jam rooms. Those are new, and we're going to talk about them later in a little bit, maybe. The global game jam is this month, so at the end of the month, everybody get excited about it. Excite! Global game jam! Raw! That's maybe not the right attitude for this music. Nice. Dessert. I want the dessert. What did people have for dinner? That's the question that inquiring minds want to know. I had spaghetti. Oh no, you gotta go grab some food. You have like 6 minutes until I start rambling about stuff. It's probably not important at all. My guess is our speakers won't start really until 7. Probably at 7. This slide, I know it says 7:15, but there's no way I'm talking for half an hour as these welcome slides, right? Probably not. I mean, I don't think. We'll see. Pivot was a pretty cool game too. Speaking of Whittier Trabella games. Whitaker. I keep saying Whittier, I think because that's the name of my kid's school. Also, I don't have my phone on me, which is just... Pivot was like, all you could do in the game was rotate things. It was like a rotating game, but it was an action game. It was kind of an action puzzle game, I think. The surrounding neighborhood surrounding my kid's school. Yes, true. Yeah, like I think there are some good videos of all these games on. Actually, I should see if there's videos of Pivot or Polymer. Bah. I don't know why I'm looking for them, but. Search for Polymer game on YouTube, and some of the results are quite bizarre. There's somebody made a tiny little Xbox controller out of clay. That's one of the first results. And like a diorama of Among Us. Like, people are obsessed with Among Us. I played it. I don't really get it. I mean, it's not that I don't get the game. Like, it's a fine game. But, like, I don't get why it's so popular. I don't understand. I'm just not hip. I'm not with it. Kids these days. That's a Ouroboros? Ouroboros, I think that's the word. Snake eating its own tail. It's popular because it's popular. I mean, there is like a snowball effect. Like, once something is a certain popularity, then it becomes more popular, I think. But I don't think that really explains Among Us. I think Among Us would never have been as popular as it is now if not for the pandemic. And it's also kind of interesting because I feel like the political unrest in the United States anyway has also led to a situation where there's a lot of trust issues. No one really knows who is on what side, who's on their side. And I think like, so that style of game where you're like trying to figure out whether people are sus. I mean, it's like, this is too real. That feels like real life right now. And I think maybe that also contributes to its popularity. Game reviews. Yeah, no one wants to hear my game reviews. I mean, we could like take turns. People could just choose a game and then do their like 3-minute game review. I don't know how our presenters would feel about that. They might feel a little slighted. Says Twitch. Is that what people do on Twitch? They review games? I don't think so. People just play games on Twitch. I should be playing a game right now. I'm sucked into Astroneer. I've played probably 80 hours of it in the last 2 weeks. Not 2 weeks. Like 6 weeks? 4 weeks? I don't know. Some amount of time. I got a new... This is news. I got an Xbox Series X. I didn't actually expect that to happen, but it was like I found like somebody, it was an opportunity, and I was like, these are impossible to get. I must buy it. So my company bought it for me. That is to say, I bought it, and I played a bunch over the winter break. Yeah, it's like, it's a game where it's a little bit sandboxy. I mean, you're kind of like exploring. It's an exploration game with a lot of crafting. And there's no real enemies. I mean, there are things that shoot at you, but like they're not really enemies. They're all static. They all sit in one place. But you're just like S-Bus Series X. Sandbox. Yeah, anyway, Astroneer. It's not a new game, I don't think, but it's on Microsoft's game service, whatever it's called. Game Salad? Game Sandwich? I don't know what it's called. And I get like 3 months of that for free. I mean, I'm probably gonna pay for it. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll have Game Pass. Thank you. That's the one. It was only $1 for 3 months, but then at some point I'll have to decide, is this worth $15 a month? And I mean, if I'm still sucked into Astroneer, yes. But if I'm done with Astroneer and none of the other games are awesome, there are quite a few, I downloaded quite a few games that I would play. Oh, and there's one that I've been meaning to play for like 5 years. Oh, I wish I could remember what it's called. Recore? I've been meaning to play that for years, but I haven't had an Xbox in since the 360, and I don't think it came out on that. So that's my review, is Astroneer. It's super fun. I think it would be even more fun if anyone wanted to play it with me. I also played quite a bit of Hyperdot on Game Pass, I will say, really just because I wanted to like test my speakers, and I was like sucked into it again. Very easy to get sucked into that game. It's pretty fun. Locally made. We could be listening to the soundtrack for Hyperdot right now. Is there there must be a soundtrack for Hyperdot. I apologize. I don't have the soundtrack for Hyperdot. I gotta fix that right now. Wait, what time is it? No, it's after 45. I'll get it later. I promise. Okay. What am I doing? I'm starting the slides. Where are they even? On my desktop. Okay, here we go. So everyone probably knows where we are. This is an IGDA meeting. Typical fare. We welcome everyone. Thanks to the Nerdery for hosting us. Everyone look around. You're in the Nerdery at this very moment. And eating pizza that they bought for us. Thanks. I should take that line out until we're back at the Nerdery. I've heard they've even moved. They're like in a new location. We're never going to go back to where we used to be. We'll never sit on those beanbags ever again. I mean, maybe they'll have beanbags at the new place. We'll see. So yeah, welcome everyone who's new. Is there anyone new in the chat? I'll bet we used to never have a meeting where there wasn't someone new. I'll bet 50% of our meetings there's nobody new now. I do know where they moved to. I think you can even just search it on Google now. Like I think they're officially moved. It's in Edina somewhere. It's not too far from where they were. It might be closer to Joe Sensors. We do have a code of conduct, so please be respectful in the chat and in all the other things. Newish. Okay, I mean that's good enough. We got someone newish. Sweet. Alright, oh, I'm gonna have to press this button. By press the button, I mean spacebar. Yeah, so this is who we are, more or less, who runs this shindig. Sorry, Beth and David, for covering up part of your face with my face. I'm on there twice now, because there's my video. I'm punchy now. I don't know what's going on. This is going to be fun. Any of these people are who run this meeting and who run this group, so thanks to everybody. And if you have any problems, contact any of them. But probably not me. I'm the least... I'm the one you want to contact the least? Maybe that's not true. I don't know. Anyway, here's our calendar for the next 2 months. Oh, and I'm covering up February, so you can't even see the dates in February. Haha. Why did I even bother doing this slide today? So our next meeting will be on February 10th, which you can't see, but it is the 2nd February. We're always in the 2nd February. Or 2nd Wednesday. Always the 2nd Wednesday. That's when we have our kind of this is this meeting, the general game dev meeting. And then we also have a playtest event on the third Wednesday, and then the fourth Wednesday is typically the VR and HCI meeting. For the next game dev meeting, we're going to have Global Game Jam postmortems. So we do this kind of every year, where we have a lot of times we like to play them at the event, but also just like talking about what people made and what they liked about what they made and what went well and what didn't go well. And hopefully we'll have enough people participating that'll be fun again this year. So as you're making stuff, keep in mind, how you want to talk about it, and that we'll want you to talk about it. So I'll be soliciting during the game jam for people who want to do that. That'd be great. I should stop playing this music, maybe? I don't know. Probably I should. Okay. Sorry, Polymer soundtrack lover enjoyers. Music is over. I hope you could all hear me. Oh, wow! Somebody's watching from Tokyo? That's insane! Really? That's awesome. I did get to go to Tokyo once. I've been. My review of Tokyo, 2 thumbs up. It's very cool. Tokyo is awesome. Yeah, okay. I'm like in a flashback of being in Tokyo. Okay. Global Game Jam postmortems next month. The VR and HCI meeting. I'll just skip to the next slide real quick for that, because there's like a little visual. This is what it looks like now when we're in Altspace. So the next meeting will be about Apple LiDAR devices. Everybody who has a new iPhone has LiDAR on the back of their phone. Well, the 12s anyway. And then some iPads have LiDAR. So now there's a lot of them in the wild, and there are more people doing 3D scanning with the LiDAR on the backs of their phones. I thought I would be one of those people. Have I done any LiDAR scanning? Nope. But I'm excited to hear about it. So we're going to hear about it from Mark Jensen at the end of the month on Wednesday, the 4th Wednesday of this month. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many cool things you could do with a LiDAR. I just haven't done anything with it. I really wanted to, though. Okay, moving on. There's the playtest event is the 3rd Wednesday, and this is a relatively new event, although I think it's probably been 6 months. Has it been 6 months yet that we've been doing that? I don't know. You can attend as just like to watch it on Twitch, or as a playtester and actually play games on the stream, or as a developer, and then your game can be the one that is being played on the stream. So it's a super cool thing that we have this at all, and I recommend it. So you can do it. You can do that if you want to do it. Contact Peter or Mark. This is our website. This is the old version of the website. Every month I talk about how I forget to update this slide with the new version of the website, but it still has the same connect button, connect with us. I think it's just connect on the new website. That has like all these different ways that you can connect with the local Twin Cities game development scene. So obviously the Slack is on there. So Slack is probably more active than Discord, like during the typical day. Discord, we really just encourage 4 events, and so we'll be using that tonight if you want to interact with people. And then the Global Game Jam, we're going to be using Discord as well. And that's also where we organize the playtest events are held through Discord as well. So you can go to our website, IGDATC.org, and find out all the different ways to connect with us. We are always looking for presenters. I think at the moment we have an opening in March, so that's the next time. If you are at all interested in presenting, please talk to me, or just shout out in Slack or Discord. Someone will find it eventually, or email anything, events@igdatc.org. Wow, that's an interesting email address. It could also just be igdatc@igdatc.org. Either one will work, I think. Hopefully, if that one doesn't work, use IGDATC. I should double check that works. There's also a Google form that no one ever uses. I don't think. No one has ever used that. But anyway, we would love to have you present on especially your game. But if you have just some other game-related thing you want to present on, that's also okay, and that's great. And we are very open to first-time presenters. You can use us as your guinea pigs. We will be happy. So I updated this slide a little bit this month. This is just about our parent org. We are a chapter of a truly international organization, the International Game Developers Association, and they do lots of stuff. You can go to igda.org and read about the stuff they do. You can become a card-carrying member. It does cost money. You don't have to be a member to come to our meetings, and likewise, you don't have to be a member to fill out the new chapter feedback survey, which appears at the bottom of this slide. So these slides are all available, as it says on the bottom of them, at tinyurl.com/igdatc-slides. And so you can click through all these fun links, and that you could find the survey there. It was not a URL that made sense to paste. It just had a bunch of garbage on it. So, I don't know. I did the survey earlier and gave us all 10 stars. So I'm sure our average right now is 10 stars. It can only go down. It does have like some questions in it that are not just like ratings. We are on Twitch, obviously, right now. I don't know if you knew that. Actually, people might be watching this later on YouTube. You might be watching us on YouTube. I hope that you have hit the, there's like that thing that you can change the speed. Change it to like 1.25 or maybe 1.5. I mean, if you're just trying to get to the content, you can skip forward through this part. You don't need to see this part at all. But definitely change the speed, because like I'm slow, boring. Don't listen to me. I don't know why I'm even saying this. See, you could be skipping this right now. Oh, but the people who are watching live, you can't skip it. Haha. So I guess we want your feedback about it or something. Not anymore. We don't. We just want this to be over. Sigh. Okay. Enough about that. The announcements. Here they are. So we used to have a community calendar. This is a thing that exists and used to have events on it, but doesn't really have events on it anymore. It still exists though. You can go to icecold.games, and it is cold outside today, and in general in Minnesota, and I think it's cold in Tokyo too. In fact, I think there's like lots of snow there, right? I saw this awesome video that was of some guys in Japan. I don't even know if they were guys, because it was a small video and I couldn't even tell. There was some people in like a big garage, and they were like pushing the snow off the roof, and then all the snow came off the roof, and it was a lot of snow. That was a really dumb description of that video, but it was a funny video. Anyway, icecold.games. I thought I'd front load this time around, so if anyone else has released a game or has anything they want to plug, put that in the chat, and I'll talk about it like as we go. I do have some other announcements today. This is normally the last slide, but today it's the first slide of the announcements. I don't know what image you're talking about. So we yeah. Anyway, you could talk about stuff in chat, and I will mention it. Oh, I have to be on the slide to advance the slide. Okay, so I am very slowly working on, like way too slowly, working on a digital version of the abstract strategy board game that I had published last year. I mean, that came out last year. It was really kind of published the year before, maybe. Anyway, there's some marketing effort happening, both around the board game, which is, available for purchase now. Yeah, if only we could. Um, so anyway, I thought I'd play this trailer. I'm curious whether you will even hear this. Like, there's some nice music that Charlie McCarran made. Yeah. Yeah, woo! So, applause, applause. You too can buy your copy. Oh, I don't have my copy right next to me. I just have a prototype next to me. The prototype is in this shaped box, but the real thing is a square box. Anyway, you can buy the game now. It is available for purchase. But the digital game is still not available. Someday it will be. Maybe next month. Maybe. But this trailer, the trailer. Oh, I should say, Adam from Adam's Apple Games made this lovely trailer for me for the digital game. And there's a landing page for the digital game, and there's like there's some marketing stuff happening slowly. And I need to push builds to all the app stores, and then maybe there'll be a release date after I submit to those stores. That's kind of the next thing, I think. Oh, what? No, stop! Apparently hitting spacebar plays if you've got a video on the page. Okay, shoot, I messed up the title here, or I'm on top of the stuff on this screen also. But University of Wisconsin-Stout, as many of you probably know, has a great Department of Game Design, I'm not sure what their department is. No, Department of Design at the University of Wisconsin-Stout has a game design and development program, and they are looking for an adjunct professor. They have hired a few people from our IGDA meetings in the past. So they're hiring someone to teach like this session, so like in January, this class that I think it says on there. I might not say on there the class name. I had to leave a lot of the information out. Let me just find the email real quick. It is called 2D Video Game Design and Development, and it's targeted at junior level students. And it's really just like they're looking for someone to teach this one class, I think. And it's a nice foot in the door if this is something that you would like to do, to teach game development and design. So reach out to this email and let them know you're interested. I would love to do this, but I do not have a degree. Very sad. Minimum requirements, bachelor degree. So I wanted to say a little bit more about the Global Game Jam that's coming up. I should have put dates on here, but it is the last week of the month. That Wednesday is the VR meeting, and then on Thursday we're going to have a quick, like maybe an hour-long, yeah, we're going to do an hour-long, like a team building event. So I encourage you, especially if you don't already know who you're going to work with for the Global Game Jam, to come to that Thursday event. It'll be in Discord. We'll probably make like a Eventbrite for that event specifically, just so that there's a little more solidity around what time that'll be. I don't think there'll be a stream or anything for that. It's just going to be like meeting in Discord and talking about, who you are, what you do, what kind of people you want to work with, or what kind of game you want to make. Maybe even pitching games at this thing. So the official start of the Global Game Jam this year is Wednesday, but we as a site are not going to start until Friday. So from Friday to Sunday, is kind of the typical Global Game Jam time, 48 hours. So that's our official time this year as well. But if you want to get started earlier, you absolutely can. And like I said, we'll be meeting Thursday to talk about team forming, and then Friday will be the kind of more official, like that's when we'll get rolling, and we'll do a brief stream and stuff and talk about the theme and talk about what the Global Game Jam is if you've never done it before, and how to get connected with other people if you don't know exactly what to do or where to start. We'll have more information for you and be there to support you in Discord. And that'll go all the way through Sunday, and Sunday afternoon you'll upload your game to the Global Game Jam site, so it's meant to be like an opportunity to share and to teach and to learn from other people's games. So basically you can go to the Global Game Jam website and like see all the games that were made last year, and for the vast majority of them you can download the contents of those games and the source code for them and like see what was made. So that's an amazing resource, and is part of the reason that it's so cool to participate, I think. So we do have a site for IGDA, MSP, Gamedev folks, and you're welcome to sign up for that and be part of our site. It's not limited this year to really anything. Like anyone could participate with us, I guess. And that's, I think, everything. I think I covered everything. I don't know. We'll see how this goes this year. I think this will be the first the Global Game Jam feels like really unique to me, and like really like the only game jam that I'm like, oh yeah, you have to do the Global Game Jam. But that's only really because it's like before this, it's always been requirement that you be there in person. Like you couldn't just sign up and do it online. And actually in the past I have been upset about that and thought like, I would do it this year, except I can't really be there. This now, ironically, I wish we could all be there. I mean, it's just like such a cool event to be around people as the game jam is happening. But I think hopefully we'll do a good job of being around in Discord, and so we'll see how that goes. And I think that is my last slide. I didn't see anyone else post that they wanted to show any like trailers or videos or anything, or plug anything else. There will be VR games made. I think that, so on the topic of degrees in general, I think degrees are extremely unimportant in the tech industry in general, but they are super important in the education industry, and especially in like accredited universities. Like I think they have like actual requirements around like the people who teach at accredited universities need to have degrees, I think. Like maybe like at some state level, or like maybe universities, I think. Yeah. It's a thing that like it kind of makes sense, like to be teaching people how to I don't know. Anyway, it's another chicken egg situation. Who taught at the first university? Like how could they didn't have degrees. Yes. Okay. So we're going to have like a brief intermission, maybe like 1 or 2 minutes, while I figure out technology for our speaker. So for our first speaker. I'll be right back. Okay. All right. I think we're ready. Your share seems to be coming through and everyone can hear you. So without further, I'll let you introduce yourself. So go for it. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, for sure. So hello, my name's Shane Yach. I'm a lo-fi game developer currently living in Minneapolis. I frequently collaborate with the Haunted PS1 community, who you might know from last year's Demo Disc, E3, or Madman Calendar. I had various things in there. Some people might also remember me from the UW-Stout IGDA cohort from like 4 years ago to like 3 years ago or something like that. or from my talk a couple of years ago about the senior game I was working on at the time, the horror game Small Hours. So anyways, so what I have here is a little game called Chojuro, which was made by Catherine Brenniger, Lazzie Brown, Dick Friedman, and Kiri Alagan for the Haunted PS1 Wretched Weekend Jam last April. And I'm going to play through it real quick. So here we go. And that was the game. I played this because I think it's a really good example of a micro game. So let me switch to my slides now. It's over. Can you see that? Cool. Okay. So now a micro game or a micro indie game is a term that doesn't have an exact definition or anything. I wasn't the one who came up with it. It's also not even exactly a new concept. It's mainly a different way of framing and looking at small games as an alternative to calling everything an indie game that doesn't fit under the AA or AAA umbrella. I don't even know if it's a good or useful word, but I'll be using it for this talk as a shorthand at the very least. Mainly, the word is less important than the concepts. So one part of a micro game is its size, like playing with game lengths of around 10 minutes to only 1 minute in length or less. That or size in reference to like a small scope with few mechanics or ideas into it. Another part of the micro game is the level of clout or influence the dev or devs might have. The word harkens to microbreweries trying to capture those feelings and images of weird brews from local, otherwise unknown brewers. Those types of breweries worked for people because of that aesthetic that brought people to trying weird, non-traditional beers. And the thought is that that could extend to video games to some degree. Mentioning games of this size might just bring to mind games coming out of game jams, Chojuro being from a jam itself. And I think most everything coming out of a game jam could go under the arbitrary classification of a microgame. But I also think it can extend beyond that development environment time schedule to include small games made over long periods of time. I think there's also a tendency to view game jam games as very throwaway little experiments, which might be by the nature of there being so many of them. But I think there's a lot of beauty in said throwaway games, quote unquote throwaway, And not just the game jams that get picked up for, not just the game jam games that get picked up for further development, but the ones that remain tiny or unfinished. Chojuro is made in the course of a week, and yet has a lot of personality and conveys a very cohesive little world and story. It's almost like a short film-like video game where it leaves you with just enough to hint at a larger plot and makes you piece together what happened. Like, are you the protagonist coming here to enact revenge on behalf of the village who is massacred? Are you returning to finish what you started? Or do you just hate horses? Another thing that comes with microgames is that they might hopefully be produced more ethically. By that, I mean the developer is avoiding crunch to finish it, like what you might see coming out of a 48-hour game jam. The hope is that more devs can work on games for a healthy amount of time, thus making the endeavor a bit more sustainable in the long term for more voices. A dev might not be trying to push out larger games with more concentrated dev time, but instead smaller games with less work involved. This kind of dev cycle can work better for people with full-time jobs who also want to keep a healthy work-life balance. Small microgames could also be made on the side of larger game projects. One benefit of that being that you more often have new things to share to a potential audience, which could be attractive depending on your level of engagement with social media. Largely, I think a big part of this framing is that it gives more power to more voices in game dev, because it's naturally a much easier space to get into than making larger games from the get-go, which I believe some devs can get trapped into thinking is the only option, and so they start with that. But also, fundamentally, I think we miss out on a lot of really great games when we ignore microgames. It's probably the most active and diverse area of game dev right now, at least on sites like itch.io and GameJolt. There's so many great unknown devs, and part of what makes a microgame, again, is chasing after lesser known talent. This past year, I've been playing a lot of little microgames, each of them delightfully wonderful and oozing with personality. I've discovered and followed so many new indie devs through playing them. And a number of these devs, in fact, almost exclusively release small experiments frequently, rather than bigger games less so. This includes people like Adam Peep, or Pipe, aka Paper Cookies, and Kitty Horror Show, who in particular periodically releases collections or volumes of little games all at once. Of course, with games sometimes being as little as 1 minute long, it can be cumbersome to download so many games, however minuscule the work to do so is. But there's ways to circumvent that, like the itch.io desktop app, which not a whole lot of people know about, and which streamlines downloading and installing games on the site. It's an added DRM component to the process, but I think it's rather minimalist and easy to use, and it's what I was using a lot of last year to play a lot of games. It's also just a good idea to download a bunch of different microgames at once to play all at once in a single session, one after the other, which is also something I did. Individually, there are small experiences, but together they can take up a good solid block of time. Or if you have less free time, you can always just play one at a time instead. Another great delivery method for microgames is collections. I mentioned Kitty Horror Show earlier, who releases collections of multiple games at once, but there's also the different collections released by the Haunted PS1 community as well. Together, they created a launcher app that's bundled with a number of games that makes it easier to launch each individual game. Not only does it make it easier to play, but the combined audience of each dev involved and the sheer amount of content that ends up in each collection makes it a very tantalizing package. There's also DreadX, which does a different thing to Haunted PS1, but with actual money and payment involved, which I think is a good addition to the space of bundled game collections. And that's pretty much what I wanted to kind of share about microgames and just the power of really tiny games and unknown devs. I myself have taken this route of producing lots of smaller games rather than anything terribly big, and I like a lot of the work I've produced. It's very satisfying, despite the size. It works well with my full-time job and allows me to have a social life while still releasing games at a steady enough pace. I didn't really discuss money too much in this, so I don't want to promise any kind of grandiose declaration of getting rich off microgames or anything. I myself released most of all of my games for free. And with that, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Shane. That's cool. I feel like there's like a whole world there that I don't really know anything about. I also have the itch app, the itch desktop app, and I think it's great. So second that recommendation.
Definitely.
All right, we're gonna take another brief break while I figure out this whole thing again for the next talk. Hopefully it won't take as long as this last one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, Shane.
Hello. Hello. Fantastic. Perfect. Wonderful.
I was not on the stream, but now I am. But everyone else heard you say hello first.
Great. This is going fine.
Great. You need to share your screen.
I don't have to do anything.
You can do whatever you want.
Yes.
Now I have to pop it out, I think. Bloop. Okay, that happened.
Cool. Did that work?
Yes, it did work.
I'm looking at my stream and I don't see my slides.
You will. Just you wait. There's like a 15-second delay or something.
Oh,
Somebody
gosh.
figured out earlier. Yeah, and I don't understand why sometimes there's a sidebar and why there's not sometimes a sidebar. I don't
Looks
get
fine.
this. Well, I don't think we want the sidebar. I mean, unless you want to show your face
I mean, I
or
love
something.
staring at my own avatar. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like, let's not show the sidebar. Can we, no, that didn't help. I don't want to show any participants. I want to just not show this right side. Why was it on the other, not on the other stream? Ugh. There's got to be a way to make it just, I want just this. I want just this. Hide members. There it is. Okay, we're good. Everybody, this is August. That wasn't an introduction. August will introduce himself. Thank you, August, for being here.
Awesome.
I'm going to go now.
Good. Thank you. Cool. So I am August, and I'm going to talk about talking about things. This is going to be a hopefully brief, really brief introduction to branding you in your game, which is something that I think is super important, but is kind of easy to forget about or not think about enough until you're really deep in it, and changing your branding is hard. So I'm going to give a little primer on a few small parts of it. So first, my favorite part of every talk, let's talk about me. That's me, I guess. Hi, my name's August. I've been in this for about 10 years, a bit more. Most of that time I've been working for a couple indie publishers as a producer. I've worked on 20-some titles. Right now I am a senior producer at Armor Game Studios, which is a small indie publisher, and I haven't ever been fired for negligence yet, which I think is why you should listen to what I have to say, because I am good enough apparently at it that I haven't been fired, so there has to be some value there, I guess. So this talk is about branding, and I think it's important that we talk about branding because it is a super foundational step towards marketing your game at any of many levels. And you can just make a game and have this thought in your game from day one of, I am making a action RPG where you play as cats, or I am making whatever. And that first thought, however that coalesces, just kind of turns into whatever your pitch is, and whatever your elevator pitch is, and whatever your like anything for the game kind of goes off of that. And that's often kind of your first thought of what the game is. And that is kind of problematic in a few ways. One, it doesn't evolve as the idea from your game evolves. And two, that first thought is almost always going to be rather generalized. And if you try to have a generalized pitch to people, it's going to be really hard to get them on board with what you're selling. So and the other really important thing about it is that thoughtfulness is required, because literally everything you present about your game goes through this lens. Anything you want to sell people about your game or about your studio or about yourself goes through the lens of how you present your game or how you present yourself. And so if you have like mixed signals, or it's like kind of confusing what you are, all of that becomes kind of a tax on the readability of like whatever you want to get across at any point. Yes, or your company or you. This applies to everything from your game down. So not only like should you be actively thinking about the brand of your game and like what are its unique selling points and all of that stuff, but like that filters all the way down to like how do you present yourself as a company and as an individual. And those are so incredibly interconnected that oftentimes your branding for your game will reflect those. There will be some aspect of your personal brand that you think is important that might resonate with a certain audience. And so that slips into the branding for your game. And it's really impossible to like separate all of these. So because of that, it's super important to really be thoughtful about every level of your brand. And then kind of the final step of this is it's really important when you're like figure out how to talk about your game and how you brand your game and yourself, of figuring out who you want to like sell those ideas to, because you might be able to really accurately pitch your game. But if your audience that is receiving that pitch is kind of mistargeted because you've misaligned your brand, it will essentially fall on deaf ears. Like I can tell my dad about the various like qualities of video cards, but he won't know like what makes a good video card. So if you like none of that will make any sense to him at that level. And so it's super important to dial whatever you're trying to sell them, like the specific specs of video card or whatnot in this example. If you're for an audience who would be interested in buying them as gifts for other people, you would be branding your sales pitch appropriately to like what makes this a good gift rather than like how many giga whatevers does this thing crank out for your games, because some audiences wouldn't care about that. And then lastly, meet Hazel and Lugnut. Usually I put in stupid stock photos of business people into my talks, but that felt a little too on the nose for this one. So I'm just going to show pictures of my cat and dog whenever I need to fill screen space. Anyway, brands. Let's talk about brands. Brands suck. At least how we usually think about brands. Branding as kind of a cultural concept, I think is really challenging and something that is almost universally like made fun of. But it's really important to kind of get past how gross brands are and think about how it affects you basically as a business owner, because that's what a game developer is. Sorry, no cows. So branding is super important. And this kind of goes on what we were saying before, is it kind of connects the dots between you and your audience and then you. Good branding on a game specifically will do a few things. It will let an audience know that a game is for them. I should be able to look at the title, the logo, the whatever gifts you're using, the high-level description, and know just from a jump set, like, oh, this game is for me. This is a game that is made with me in mind. If I see personally like a bunch of gifs of like a super gory first-person shooter, I know from the offset that branding is successful in letting me know that that game isn't for me. But if you like that kind of game, that kind of branding immediately ropes you and lets you know, yes, I should be interested in this on a high level. And the most important thing it does from there is kind of completes that circle and says, okay, this game is for you, and this is why you should give a shit about it. And once that circle is completed, if you have clarity in your branding, and this is super key, is it makes it really easy for someone who identified that they would be interested in the game, got hooked on the unique selling point, and is now actually like really interested in whatever the core game is. If you have a clear brand strategy, it's super easy for them to turn around and tell a friend. Something that I think trips a lot of people up is they have a really cool core concept that through gifts or whatever, they're able to hook people on well enough. But then when it comes time for people to tell their friends, it's like, oh man, you got to play this game. It's like an RPG, but it's like, ugh, I can't describe it. If more often than not, your target audience is running into that, that's been an essential failure in how you're designing your brand, because it should be easy for people who are excited about your game to describe your game. And often that's really hard to do. There's Lugnut. So what is branding? So branding on the whole is this really huge amorphous thing that is way too big of a topic for this talk. But a lot of things kind of go into it, and at its core, it's a lot of like disparate things. And this is specifically talking about branding a game title, which is a bit different from like branding you or your studio or whatever. So it'll be things like the elevator pitch, whatever your values as a studio or as a developer are, what your team is, where you're from, what you're into generally, what your core personality is, what you want to get out of game development, what you want this game to accomplish. All of those things and like so many more are kind of your brand for that game, or like your internal brand. And then the idea is you put all of those things, package them up through this weird branding process, and it spits out everything kind of for your external brand, translating that for the layman audience who might not be familiar with your internal stuff. And they might not care about like what your personal values are, but how those things like your values will shape how you form these messages and will come across in fairly nuanced ways. And also importantly, people will be able to tell what your product is about or what your game is about by noticing what you're not talking about and what you're not emphasizing. And that stuff will come through kind of on your internal branding. So it goes through and you're left with everything that is meant for people who aren't familiar with your game to get them up to speed on what your game is. And hopefully, if they're within that target audience, hook them in. And this just isn't for like, this is a super kind of zoomed out, generalized view, where this isn't just like for your Steam page. This is like for publishers. This is for pitching to funds. This is for pitching to Nintendo or Steam for marketing. Like all of these things will be, how do you take your internal branding, put it through whatever brand machine you have, and spit out a branding for your game for that target audience. So this is an exercise you should go through constantly for your game, for whatever audience you're currently targeting and not just your core consumer audience. And there's Hazel. So as I mentioned briefly, there's way too much to cover. Branding is this really huge, multifaceted thing. And there are literally books and books and books and books on it. And I want to chat for no more than like half an hour. And so we just can't do that right now. So I'm going to focus on what I think the two largest hangups, especially for indie devs, are. And that's going over audience and pitch. So this first exercise is all about how do you decide who your target consumer audience is for your game. You can think about things like their age, their gender, their country of origin, education level, their income. This is all gross and bad. I think this is a really flawed and like terrible way to think about audience, specifically for games, but also generally. Like we've really got past the point. Like I think this is an antiquated view and it really is ineffective. And there's Hazel. So when you're looking at how to develop your target audience and kind of define your target audience, this is something you see all the time. As a publisher, when people like pitch their games to us for publishing, this is my least favorite slide in a pitch deck. And it's really challenging because it means no one knows who their core audience is if you have a slide like this. Like if you tell me you're targeting age 18 to 45 males and females, you are targeting humans. Like that just means you're probably not targeting dogs and you're probably not targeting my grandma or my like nephew son, but like, or like a baby, but like anything in between. Like this game is for everyone. And that's not true. Not every game is for everyone. The problem with that is like my like older sister is in this demographic and there might be a game that like really speaks to me, but like super doesn't speak to her. And so if you have a large percentage of this presented audience that your game just isn't for, it's not a useful tool. And the whole point of targeting an audience is knowing like who exactly you're trying to sell your game to. So something that might be a little more useful for a hypothetical puzzle game is instead of talking about their age and gender and other like kind of demographic information, I really like focusing in on verbs and nouns, which is someone who is looking for a chill, relaxing game, which have a focus on cute animals and making you feel clever. And this might describe the exact same game, or the exact same audience, but one has a lot more specificity, but at the same time is a lot more open for kind of flexibility, where the second description doesn't mention puzzle games at all. And I think mentioning your genre at any level in your branding, specifically in your target audience, is really hard because almost no one only plays puzzle games. Almost no one only plays action games. I think most people, especially people who are key in on playing a lot of indie games, which I think is a pretty target audience at this point, have a fairly diverse view of games. If you look at breakdowns of like people's Steam libraries or whatnot, there might be a common theme in like the atmosphere of a game or whatnot, but someone might love Spiritfarer and Stardew Valley and I don't know, Night in the Woods. Those are three very different games that branch three very different genres, but they have like some very similar elements through all of them that very rightly would attract like kind of a common audience, but you're not going to get that if you just say, I'm targeting people who love puzzle games. So the core of like building out this audience is that you use that to then kind of spring off into other aspects of building out your brand and your brand strategy. So once you have a target audience, so like this is for people who want like really relaxing experiences and like feeling clever. You can find other games that share those attributes, and people who like those games probably like your games. And it's really important, I think, at this point to kind of put genre in the back of your mind. When I go through this exercise with developers I work with and whatnot, it's so easy to be like, okay, we need to find, you know, idle games that are like this, or sim games or puzzle games or whatever. And I think you will really limit the kind of audience, like limit your audience that you're targeting in a really negative way, and likely run into just a dearth of being able to find like enough comps to base your game off of. So I would really try to go broad with this and look at those key kind of adjectives that the feeling of playing that game, your game elicits, and find what other games make people kind of feel that way. And once you have your comp games, you're going to go through and get things like keywords and tags. And once you build like a tag cloud for your game, you'll be able to do things like go through Steam's tag wizard and find maybe some more comp games that you didn't know about, or say like, this tag really, like I have this game about, I don't know, that puzzle game that we were talking about, hypothetically, but I'm getting all of these like zoo games, like these zoo management games, because I have penguins in my keywords, and no one like would like all of these really casual zoo management games. So I'm going to get rid of that keyword and kind of start over. So this is really an iterative loop. And then once you have like your tag cloud and your keywords, and you know kind of what games that people might be comparing your game to, ideally, you can build things like your game description. And from there, you can build out your marketing plan. Your marketing plan will use all of these things, starting with your audience all the way through. In like, if you are running ads on Reddit, maybe if you're doing kind of a life semi game that evokes a lot of the same feelings that Stardew Valley does, you can target the Stardew Valley subreddit. So this will fall in kind of one after the other, kind of like dominoes, being able to fill out your marketing plan just based on who your core audience is. And there's a really cute photo of Hazel. Cool. So we have your core audience. We know like the kind of what people who you're targeting are interested in a game. And then how do you craft a pitch for that audience? This is something that I think is incredibly important and is very often done backwards, where people, again, as I mentioned earlier, like have this idea for a game from when they start laying the first line of code. And then they have that in mind. And then they're like, what audience fits this game? Rather than have it be cyclical. So to start, you have your game once it's relatively formed, and then you use the key aspects of your game to go through the exercise we just described to build out your audience. And now you connect those dots. and you build your pitch specifically, as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, to specifically speak to that target audience and hit on their wants and hopes and whatever, to let them know that, hey, this is a game you should be excited about because it's really distinct. But to get to that point, I think it's really important to know like what isn't a pitch. Or I should say specifically, what isn't or what shouldn't a pitch be? So a pitch isn't a list of features. It's so easy to say this game has 6 characters and 40 levels and whatever. And like, cool. It's important for games to have characters and levels if they have characters and levels, but it's not something that an audience is going to care about. It's not the game genre. As I mentioned before, I think people have really diverse thoughts on their game selection and what really interests them. And some people might be able to like latch on to you saying it's a first-person shooter. But I think if you kind of steer away from that and use more evocative imagery in describing your game, you can loop in people who might not think they like first-person shooters. I think Lovely Planet, for those who aren't familiar, is this super like cartoony, bright, kind of Katamari Damacy looking game that is a hardcore speed running game that's a first person shooter that looks like a super chill game. And if you pitch it as like, this is a first person shooter, I don't think that game would have done well. Because even though it absolutely is, if you like things like the tone of Katamari Damacy, you're going to love that game, even if you don't typically love first-person shooters. So I think you kind of dig yourself in a hole if you lead genre first. And then a generic description of your game, which kind of encapsulates everything I just went over, of this pitch has to describe your game and your game alone. And this is something I'm going to say a lot because it's super important and it's something I think not enough games do well. There's Hazel after he made fun with a baby bunny. Cool. So what are the keys to a good pitch then if everything we went over is like things to a kind of messy pitch? As I mentioned before, it has to be super descriptive. This doesn't mean it's like 1,000 words. In practice, where this pitch will come in will often be somewhere like some variant of this will be your short description in Steam. Or your title slide for a pitch deck to a publisher or an investor or something. And so it should be short and punchy, but it should describe your game and your game alone. While it's doing that and you're targeting it towards that core audience, it needs to demonstrate the unique selling point of your game. If you Google USP or unique selling point, it's this super important concept in branding and marketing, and there's so much more to it than what I'm able to say in like 10 seconds, but the gist of it is that it is the one thing that your product, in this case a game, has that your target audience is just going to be super jazzed about. It has to be descriptive. I can't stress this enough just because of how many games I see that go over and like Super Sloth Ball is a action platformer with 12 levels. Like, besides the game's title, you just described 1,000 other games. So I'm going to be really annoying on being repetitious with that. And then I think the second to last thing that's super important is using evocative language that puts you in the kind of shoes of what it's like to play your game. And then again, please just describe your game. There's a cat. Cool. So now we're talking about pitches. And we're going to go back to the hypothetical puzzle game that we were describing before when we were trying to find a target audience. So this totally made up game is Party Puzzle Penguins is a puzzle game that's easy to learn but difficult to master. Match gems to power up your penguins to clear over 40 levels. I hope with how much I just dunked on half of these things, it's fairly self-evident why I don't think this is a good description. You could substitute the title and penguins from the last line to anything else. And those are the only descriptive things about this. Other than that, this description could describe 1,000 games, if not more. And most importantly, if we're talking about going back to our target audience from earlier, where we're looking for people who like chill experiences that make them feel clever. They have no idea that, one, they're speaking to them. There might be people who like chill experiences but like to feel clever but don't think they like puzzle games. So this actually turns them off from your game. And there are people who don't know this game is chill and have this thought in their head of like, oh, I kind of like puzzle games, but they're kind of frantic. I don't like how like much anxiety they cause me. And so this isn't a perfect description at all, but just as a kind of next iteration of the above, channel your inner chill penguin as you march through handcrafted hip-hop backed levels. One, that tells you, it doesn't tell you the genre, but it's fine. You know there are levels. You know that the levels, rather than being like generated or whatever, that they're going to be like carefully handcrafted and likely going to have unique solutions. This combined with the logo and whatever like key art will let people know like, oh, at a glance, it's something like a puzzle game. I can tell that there are gems. You don't have to let just your pitch alone do all that heavy lifting. I think there is an issue with redundancy of trying to have every desperate piece of your marketing and your branding do all the lifting on its own. And the times where your game's description will just be on its own without even like a Twitter avatar or a GIF or a store page assets, like, is going to be really rare. And so if you are in a situation where you know that it's not going to have anything with it, you can put in some more descriptive language for the exact like things the player will be doing. But I think just to set a tone, like this is something that is instantly more approachable and interesting to someone who is in that just audience that we described earlier, rather than just saying, yo, this is a puzzle game with 40 levels. So that was a lot, but it was also not very much at all. Like this is the tip of the iceberg, so to say. And I'm sorry, I feel like there's so much to talk about with branding, especially in games where there are so many different storefronts. Like you might brand to PC gamers versus mobile gamers versus console gamers all differently. And even then, like I'm probably going to pitch to Xbox people who play Xbox differently than I pitch to people who play Switch. Like this all can get super in the weeds really quick, and I wanted this to be as focused as I could. But I think if you take away nothing else from this, is that number one, just think about your brand. Think about how you present yourself as a developer, how you present yourself as a company, and then how you present your game. And do this routinely. If it's not something you naturally think about, which I think is hard for a lot of us, set a quarterly reminder on your calendar to say like, hey, stop for 20 minutes and think about your game's brand. Go iterate on your tags. Go think, is there something I can do with my store description to make it more like resonate with the audience that I didn't know liked my game 6 months ago, but I've now discovered since. Like, I made this game about penguins, and now suddenly furries really love my game, and I'm really into how much they dig it. Is there something I can do in my store text that adjusts to better capture that audience I didn't know exists? When you go through this exercise of building your brand, think about everything from your game, your values, your goals, etc., to identify an audience. And this isn't just, I mentioned a little bit earlier, this isn't just your game. This isn't just looking for people who want to play a puzzle game with 40 levels. This might be, I am a, let's say you're a developer who is from South Africa and you're making games local, or games that talk about some local cultural event or something, and all of your games might not be about that event or whatever directly, but it will definitely be informed by it. So your brand might be made by a South African creator and all these games, blah, 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 blah. Or it's made by a like Black queer creator. Like those are things where audience will have resonate with any number of things, and they won't just be about like the mechanics or the art in the game. Your brand can be really big and shouldn't be limited to just like how you quantify your mechanics. And then think about really hard about how you take everything that your game is and that you are, and handcraft it for that target audience to just get them super jazzed about your game and make it easier for them to get their friends jazzed about it. And then please, like, this talk was fine, I guess, but like, I wasn't able to scratch any amount of how much there is to talk about this. There's some really great additional reading out there. Follow Meredith Hall. I think she's one of the smartest voices on this topic of branding and marketing in games. She works with Film Victoria with their games program, and she's just super smart. Simon Carlos talks about this a little bit, or a lot, in his newsletter, which is mostly around discovery, but also definitely goes into like brand adjacent conversations. Lars Doucette talks about discoverability a lot, which when you talk about how you formulate like game comps and a tag cloud for your game and all of that stuff, his tools and general thoughts I have found fairly invaluable while doing these investigations. And then Oliver Wright had a really great GDC talk some number of years ago talking about developing brands for video games. And I think if you could have just watched his talk instead of sitting through mine, that probably would have been a better use of time, but I'm here and he's not. Anyway, that's my talk. Thanks so much.
Nice. Thank you, August. Oh, he's gone. August is gone. Well, that was a great talk, and got me thinking about all the stuff I don't already think about. So that's a lot of stuff that I don't think about ever. Oh, are you still there? Are you still here, August? Oh, you are. You are still here. I don't know what I'm laughing about. I'm just laughing. Do you want to take questions? Do you want some Q&A?
Yeah, if anyone has questions, sure.
Does anyone have any questions for August? There's snapping happening. Also, I think that might be the Kool-Aid kid. No, the Kool-Aid man, like the big Kool-Aid guy. Boy. Oh, that's Meat Boy. You're right. Meat Boy's kind of like the Kool-Aid man, isn't he? Maybe Meat Boy's like the son of Kool-Aid man. How would you brand Super Meat Boy? No, I don't know. That's a dumb question. It's funny, I can't think about Super Meat Boy without thinking about that movie, Indie Game, the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you think about any of... I think Edmund McMillan, whatever his last name is, like, is an interesting... Like, the problem of, like, auteur art in general, but it's also, like, an effective brand strategy where it doesn't matter what game he makes, if it's a roguelike shooter or a super hardcore platformer. Every game's brand that he makes is a game by Edmund McMillan, and then basically nothing else matters because his brand is that strong.
What other games has he made?
Binding of Isaac, a ton of old Flash games. I think those are his two like big, like indie games.
I can't.
And then he's working on Mugenics now, I think.
I cannot believe I didn't know those were made by the same people. I mean, it makes perfect sense, but I had no idea. That's funny. Because I'm so ignorant. That's why that's funny. I recently... I'm trying to make a question out of this, like, anecdote. And maybe I'll succeed by the end. But I recently did my logo for Abstract Puzzle. And that was like there's like a lot of like the process involved thinking more about like what does this thing say about me than what do I want to say with this thing. Does that make sense? Did I do it backwards, I guess is my question. That's my question. Did I do it wrong? Am I doing it wrong?
Well, I don't feel like I'm on the spot at all. No, I think that's like it goes to kind of that base question of I think you start with an audience and then you work your way back to does my logo or which of these logos resonates with that audience and gets them interested in whatever I'm trying to sell them. So like it's easy to give examples of like really bad ideas for stuff like that. Like I think generally know who your audience is to some extent, but if your logo was literally just like abstract puzzle formed out of intestines and gore, like that wouldn't make sense for you.
Are you sure?
And I think that one's like a little on the nose and obvious, but I think if you walk back from something that's obviously bad, you can kind of find the shades of gray in there of like, oh, this might look like I just make puzzle games. Like I just make different versions of like, I don't know, Candy Crush or whatever. And because I might use like kind of too bubbly font or whatever, and just be really critical of like, what games do you assume a dev with that logo makes? And not just genre, but like theme and atmosphere and all that garbage.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I did not think at all about my audience while making the logo. I only thought about but I thought a lot about like who I am and like who I want in my business, what I wanted to say about my business and that kind of thing. Like, so it's interesting. I mean, I think I should spend some time thinking about like who is my intended audience and how can I, push that more in the logo, or like does my logo reflect that, or like do those things work together? I don't know.
Yeah, because different audiences will come from different backgrounds and different points of view, and so your target audience, like an assumption from that point might be that your target audience is a lot like yourself and comes with your own biases and your own like framework and everything. But that might not be the case. So there might be some. I don't think this is the case with your logo per se, but there might be some like kind of subtle inside joke or something that just falls flat with who your target audience ends up being. And so it's a question like, do I need to adjust who my target audience is because that's who I actually want to reach out to? Or do I need to simplify my logo to get rid of this dumb inside joke because it makes it a little too complicated for the 95% of people who won't get it in practice?
Scott, I would absolutely show you my logo, but I'm on the wrong computer to do that. So I'm like trying to think about like how can I get it from one computer to the other? Like I have it up on one computer, but I can't push the pixels across the screens. And it's not like it's not really public yet. Like I need to put it on. Yeah, I need to put it on a website, I think is what I need to do.
I mean, you make fun, man. Furries spend so much money. Like, furries are a really good audience if you can get them.
I don't think I did make fun about that.
Oh no, someone in chat.
Someone else did. Yeah. I don't see any other questions. No one's asking.
Yeah.
I guess Scott is asking who he is, but I don't know if that was to you or not.
I think it was to you having a personal
like brand
journey for your branding.
you say that like you're making fun of me, but you just did a like 40-minute talk about it, so
Cool. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
yeah, thanks for coming on. To everyone else, oh, here's an actual question. Jay,
Oh.
do you want to read it?
Oh, have you yet to have a game you thought would be big if you could have perfect marketing or an infinite budget? I mean, I think any game would be big if you have an infinite budget. Just look at EA. I don't think that's on the merit of the games themselves. But I think there are games where I know they're special and I know there's something to them, and it's incredibly hard for me or anyone else to do this step. Like, this step is so difficult, and it's not like people are lazy or dumb. Like, I think game developers on the whole, just because you have to be so like multifaceted in your abilities and everything to just like make a game in the first place, that like everyone is able to go through this exercise and be successful with it. But some games just like are special, but you can't tell why easily. And cracking that nut is like 99% of marketing and branding. So I can't think of any. There are like some games off the top of my head that I worked on that I feel like weren't perfect with their branding. But there's one kind of on the flip side of that I worked on like 4 years ago or something. It was a idle game that was on mobile, but also on Steam and web, called Realm Grinder. And it was basically, even now I'm going to have a really hard time pitching this game. But it's an idle game where you have like a ton of different factions that you can choose from, kind of in the pseudo fantasy world, and everyone will have slightly different ways that you interact in order to get gold faster. Some of them will have more focus on casting spells or doing active things like clicking or just like passive income. And when it came time to like put pen to paper of how do we pitch this game, at the time it was specifically how do we pitch this game to platforms, to Apple and Google, to try to get featuring, we had a hard time. Like, it's an idle game. Okay, that's not exciting. Like, there are so many idle games. As pixel art, that's not like there's nothing super exciting, and it has a lot of content. And those were kind of like the core places we started, and I'm like, this is nothing. This is kind of exactly what I was describing earlier of, like, we just described as genre, vaguely how it looks, and said it has a lot of content. And the more I thought about it, like, that game had, like, a lot of content. And not just, like, a little lot of content, like, a lot of content. Like, it had, I think, I forget, like 22 distinct systems, some wild number like that. And these aren't just like different items or factions. Like, the fact that there are 12 different factions is just one of these 22 systems. And so we put together a sell sheet for these platforms that the first page was like describing the game generally, and the second page was just uncomfortably filling the slide with all of the game's systems. In a way that I think generally I would advise against, but at first look, you just look at like, holy crap, there are so many systems of this game, and like it has so much depth. And we got like really good featuring from that, and that was one of the times we went through this exercise and tried to like figure out what would excite the type of player who plays these really systems heavy idle games. And when we thought about it for long enough, it was just like, there's so much to it. So I think that is kind of on the flip side, like one of the times where I had something that was a really big challenge to nail the branding. But once we did, like, it resonated with these people, in this case, these editors for Google and Apple, in a way that it didn't have to resonate with. And the reception and everything from there was really good too. So that was one time where I thought we were going to really shit the bed on marketing, but we ended up being able to find a good angle.
You got to talk for like 1 more minute.
Do Sonic games need marketing? Yes. All games need marketing. I mean, Game Grumps is slamming them. That's definitely marketing. Oh, that's a super good question. So if you have no budget, so marketing and branding are two different, very related things. Your brand is something that is like, if you put your game on Steam, you have branding. You need a store description. You need a large capsule image. You need a small capsule image. Those are all things that Steam won't let you launch without, and you need some screenshots. Those are all things you need to launch your game that Steam won't let you launch without it, and all of those things kind of speak to your branding. And so, and everything that I just described of going through this exercise is free. It doesn't cost money, and it articulates exactly. I think it's even more important if you don't have a huge budget. It's also super important if you do have a huge budget. It's important no matter what. But it lets you think about, okay, people who like this game or like this thing really love, I think will love my game. So even though I don't have budget to like spend tens of thousands of dollars on ads, I can hang out in those subreddits or hang out in those Twitter groups and post GIFs and whatever of my game there. And that's all marketing. Like posting your game on Reddit or Twitter or whatever is all marketing. And there's like this organic marketing, which doesn't cost anything but your time, which is super valuable, but a bit more plentiful for a lot of devs. And so knowing, I think this is super important because like getting ingratiated into these communities like Reddit or Imager or 9gag or like building a following on Twitter is such a huge investment that if you kind of got your audience wrong and then you just spent 4 months like getting to a place where you feel like you're getting some reception on your game and then you found out that that community doesn't give a crap about your game, that costs way more than accidentally spending like 5% of your marketing budget on the wrong website. So yeah, I think basically just doing this exercise and doing a lot more reading on building your brand in general. I hope that answers your question. Twitch handles? Yes. Anything you pick about your game is branding. If my game, or like if my Twitter handle was I love furries 420, that's going to say a lot about me to folks who might not be interested in my chill fishing game or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. Anything you associate with your game, whether it's your screen name, your given name, anything, will have people form opinions based on that. Cool.
That's great.
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, August. I'm like 2 seconds away, maybe that's not true, from having uploaded this logo to my website.
Oh no. Well, I'll let you just stew in peace then, I guess.
But you're supposed to keep talking so that it's not boring.
Uh-huh. Do I say that $1 on dev yields $1 on marketing or $10? I don't, like, it's hard to quantify value on any of this stuff. I mean, like, quantifying value on any marketing is super hard at any level, because you'll have people like content creators charging like $50,000 for one YouTube video, and like some free market something capitalism says they can, and so they do, but like I don't think it's worth that in most cases. So like trying to quantify something even harder is like your dev time versus marketing. I don't know. This might answer your question, but like for market branding generally and marketing specifically, on teams that I work on where the dev team is a bit more hands-on with marketing, I try to get like 1 to 2 days a month dedicated just to marketing. I think really, and that's with the publisher. That's them doing stuff that the publisher can't do, like getting custom gifts from a build or whatever, or having their artists draw like custom art that the publisher can't draw. So if you are doing, if you're serious about making a business out of games and you're just a solo person, I would spend 1 day a week on marketing. It slows down dev a lot, but like you'll have a better chance of actually shipping units when you get to the end. I hope that answers that question. Do you have your logo yet?
It's pathetic. I had to... No, I don't. But you know what? We should go to Discord, and I'll post it on Discord.
Good. Goodbye.
Thanks, August.
Yep.
All right, and thanks everyone for coming. I think this was a good meeting. Yep. What is on the screen right now? That's my personal brand. That's like my Discord user like icon. It's me on a beach with a rainbow. What is that called? The thing that you hold into the sky? Kite. A rainbow kite that I still own. Okay. Good night.